who's gonna win and who's gonna lose their soul. Anywho, I don't know. I'm not sure what this video is going to be about. How you and I, Jesus Christ, I guess how we can proceed without losing our souls. Without losing our souls. Today is about mindful interactions. And I guess how to not get swept up, man. How to not get swept up in the noise of everything that's going on today. I can't help it. Let me know in the comment section if you have found this particular to your circumstance, your situation. Well, in between elections, people seem to be with each other for the maybe not since Schmovid 4 years ago. It's becoming increasingly polarized, ever increasingly polarized, which is not necessarily a good sign. As you guys know, we talk about this a lot. To have polar opposites is a necessity for existence to happen in this world. We must have polar opposites in order to exist. In other words, we exist upon that which resists us. Opposites define each other while being same in degree, while being same in quality of energy. They manifest differently, extremely differently, in how they manifest themselves. And isn't it wild how we see that? Well, I'm gonna allow me to speak freely. May I speak freely? Allow me to speak freely. Democrat, Republican. Isn't it interesting that the two poles of Democrat and Republican are the same two poles of the mind, are the same two poles of at least in America, everything else that splits, the masculine and feminine. The Republican being the more masculine side, which is about the individual rights, sort of pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, while the left being the feminine, passive. The Democratic side is more about wholesome and more about inclusiveness, no borders, let no one's illegal, etc. Both sides are beautiful qualities of energy, but it's not about what's good and bad. It's what's most useful in any given circumstance, right? That's how we sort of have a more accurate definition of good or bad. It's not necessarily what's good and what's bad, because good and bad have a tendency to be fleeting, but what is necessary and what is unnecessary? Do we need an individualistic approach to this scenario? Then run it. Do we need a holistic approach to this circumstance or scenario? Then run it. When in reality, we need them both. Which is why I look at politics, especially in America, and go, wow, I leaning into one or the other side is like leaning into one or the other side of your brain. It's being like, we must be right brain and operate I always get these mixed up. I don't know what's wrong with me. We must lean into the right brain, which says we got to be creative and artistic and wholesome and inclusive, right? The passive side of the brain, right? Well, I'd be a fool to only lean into the left side of the brain, just like I'd be a fool to lean only into the right side of the brain. I'm not going to focus only on the individual, and I'm not going to focus only on the communal, the holistic. That doesn't make any sense to me. So why would we do that in our politics? I don't know. That was my digression. That's not to say if you guys are voting for one side or the other, that's what you're choosing. Just to show that the extreme polarization and the peculiarity that's how our politics manifest, either the individual or the communal. Yeah, baby. Atlas wanted to check up on me. So I want to talk about how we can not get lost in the sauce during times like these, because the problem with it being extraordinarily polarized this time around is that when one side loses, as it inevitably must, when one side loses, we sort of all lose. Because it's like cutting out the masculine. It's like cutting out half of your brain. It's like cutting out the analytical side of your brain, or it's like cutting out the creative side of your brain. Like, we need them both. Anywho, it can be difficult to navigate times like these without losing yourself. It's hard to navigate things during times like this without being lost in the sauce and caught up with things, especially being on social media. It's so easy for people now today because we have a thought, and there's nothing wrong with having thoughts. There's nothing wrong with having these emotions or outrage or disgust or angst or anger. But before, maybe someone didn't have breakfast this morning and they see a headline that's totally misleading, because we know how the media is, so we have a reaction and we post it on Facebook, and it's not something that we would normally post, but we're really fired up. It's really charged times that we're in right now. And boom, now you're engaged for the next 45 minutes with people talking trash, with people jump in your case. Now you're arguing back and forth. Now you blow another 15, 20 minutes on research to back yourself up. And oh my God, actually I found that I might be wrong. So let me find some other research that proves me right, or at least other research that proves us both wrong. And it's just like, when we wake up, we can't be engaging in that kind of stuff. We got to be engaging with our practices. Go for a walk in nature, go outside with your garden, hang out with your loved ones, kiss your children, read them books, read the book yourself. I don't know. Reconnecting with inner values during times of change is really what's going to keep all of us alive. It's what's going to keep us all going, because at the end of the day, what's happening is we all want the same goddamn thing. We all want peace for the most part. At the end of the day, we want peace. Maybe during the week, we want some adventure. We want some excitement. We want some unplanned circumstances. We want some, angst, anger, fear, right? That's what helps us evolve. That's what helps us grow. But at the end of the day, we want to have beers with the homies at the local tavern with a live band playing music in the corner, a cute bartender, and just jovial merrymaking. That's what we want. We want happiness, peace, and love, man. That's all we want. It doesn't matter if you're left, right, rich, poor, black, but this, what? So by reconnecting with these inner values, we pull away from the external world, because how can you focus on the inner value of the self while still being completely lodged in the external? We got to be here, baby. What brings you happiness? What brings you peace? And it ain't fighting over left versus right. It ain't fighting. It's so easy to feel pressured by everyone's opinions, by the news, and not that it's without merit. I mean, because we ourselves are included in that pressure. Just by existing, just by sharing our own thoughts, we exert some amount of pressure. So it's not unheard of. It's not something that you can completely avoid, but it is something that you can exist in without judgment. I don't know what philosophy of spirituality says this, but it's something along the lines of be of the world and not in the world. Did I say that right? No. Be in the world, but not be of the world. I mean, like, you can exist sort of passively to a degree, where you are receiving inputs, but you're not associating yourself with them. Because when we start associating ourselves with the input, we start to become the input, and then we get lost in the sauce. When we become the input, we become a mouthpiece for the input. Think Matrix. When anyone who's plugged into the Matrix now becomes something that Agent Smith can access. So if you are an input in the Matrix, Agent Smith takes over your body, and now you are a mouthpiece for Agent Smith. The Matrix did it beautifully, but Neo and his squad were able to be in the Matrix, but because they were unplugged, they were not of the Matrix, meaning they were no longer a mouthpiece for whatever digital entity wanted to become them. And that's what people become, and they don't realize is they become, especially now, digital entities of whatever mouthpiece that they sign up for. It's so important. It is important to be concerned with world events, but we got to remember that it's not our reactions to the world events that's going to change the course of at least our world. It's the sound like Gandalf. It's the everyday deeds of ordinary folk. I can't remember that quote, but it's beautiful. The quote by Gandalf actually says right. It's not. I think it's Sauron believes it's great deeds that will change the course of the world, but I don't think that's the way it is. I think it's small everyday deeds of ordinary folk that have the most impact, and that's so true. That's so true. Go to your my neighbors. They brought me carne asada yesterday. They brought me a bunch of food. I have a whole bunch of homemade pumpkin ale. I brought them 3 bottles of 22-ounce bottles of homemade pumpkin ale. They brought me a couple plates of asada rice, nopales from the freaking cactus, homemade. Like, small everyday deeds reminds us that, we have substantially more in common than we don't. And those small things are really what's going to change the world. So when you see the news and you see the world getting caught up and you see everyone hating each other, and you got to realize that that's a very insignificant part of existence. How about this? Balancing individuality with a sort of world perspective. What do you guys think about that? Like, if I were to ask you, how do you know that what you believe in and what you speak out on and what you're most passionately stoked about. How do you know that that is a reflection of the collective or a reflection of yourself? Because again, we study spirituality. We understand the mastermind principle from Napoleon Hill. We understand that when two or more people come together, there is a mastermind that of its own volition that comes into being, comes to life. There's an entity that comes to life when more people, and that entity can sort of take on its own momentum, its own life force. And that life force can guide, right? You and I, we're all attached to this sort of global consciousness that sort of guides us in any given direction. It's an accumulation of all of our thoughts and feelings, and it's sort of it's like AI. Like AI is an accumulation of human thought, feeling, emotion, and it grabs from everyone, it spits out an answer to you guys. But there is how do you know that, if the majority of the human consciousness sways in one direction, we are going to be pulled in that direction because we are human. So how do you figure out, let me know in the comments. I'll go first. I don't know at first. My response to that is, Keith, I actually don't know, because I read books, I watch movies, I watch YouTube, I involve myself in social media. So at first glance, I don't actually know what are my thoughts and what are others. But what I can do is I'm answering for myself. I'm curious to your guys' responses. What I can do is I can idealize the perfect Keith that I want, and I can go forward to decide what type of content I want to consume to create that sort of Keith. All right, I know if my Keith looks like X, Y, and Z, then I'm going to consume X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to consume A, B, C if Keith wants to be X, Y, Z, because that's a clash, that's a dissonance. So over time, I know that by consuming the things that I sort of aspire to, that I will inevitably become those things that I am consuming. And therefore, when I do make those decisions, when I do reflect upon my ideologies and where they come from, I can sort of be certain that my ideas are in alignment with who I am, or at least who I am at any given time, because we all change, right? Who I was when I was 18 years old is substantially different than who I am now at 36. So you can understand that, or you can appreciate the nuance of everyone's situation. Like, you're different, I'm different, we have different things we want to ascribe to, but I don't know, that's my answer. Anyway, I feel like I've been rambling for a while. Thank you guys for hanging out. If you guys want me to post more, go in the comment section and say, Keith, for the love of God, post more. I miss you. I want to see more videos. I need inspiration, you guys. It's hard to stay inspired. Sometimes. I could use your help. I love you guys. Thank you for the support. Either way, thank you. Like and subscribe if you're new, if you made it this far. My name's Keith. I'll see you soon. All right, peace out.